Yeah, so if this is your first class, you don't know any other classes beforehand. You want to learn the basics, like how are you? I'm fine. No? Okay, cool. So how does it sound to go over a bit of a review, and then I think Ray covered 16, but we can do some of the earlier lessons that maybe haven't been covered lately. Does that sound good? And then of course the whole time it's going to be open to questions. So if you have any questions like topics you want to discuss, or a question about deaf culture, or like a sign you want to know, go ahead and ask. Okay, cool. Let's do 9. That's a good one. So the first is forgive. Again, this will be a review for some of you, so go ahead and show me that by showing the sign. So you're going to have kind of like a relaxed hand and then an open hand, and you're doing this. I'll show you from the side, like that. This is also the sign for excuse or excuse me. So if you look kind of like bumped into someone, you're like, oh, excuse me. That works. But it could also be like, I forgive you. Yep, I forgive you. And leave. There are 2 signs for this. One would be just like the general leave. What you're going to do is you're going to have open hands. And you're picking it up. Like you're picking up all your stuff and you're leaving. Got all my bags, got all my things that I need. I'm getting out of here. The other one is this. You're going to have an open palm like this, horizontally. Then you have your pointed finger. Imagine this as your person. This is me, and I'm leaving. I'm leaving. So this is arrive. You're arriving at this place, and then you're leaving. And you're going to see this when it's the context of like really quick leaving. So it's like, boom, they were gone. Where'd they go? Boom. Like, someone joined, they saw me, they left. So that's like really quick. But just a general leaving, you could say, leave. Leave, just like that. Okay. This is another one with 2 variations. So you're going to have 2 R hands, and you're going to shake both of them right next to your face. Ready. I kind of think about this like when you're a little kid, you're kind of going like this. I'm ready. Like it's, it's kind of like that, but with our hands. Another one is this. Ready. You're showing it. You're going, I'm ready. Ready to go. I think of this as more like starting something. Like, are you ready to start? Are you ready to get in the car? And then this is just like more of a general readiness. Like, oh yeah, she's ready. Or whatever. Next one is skill. This is also the same sign for talent. You're going to have an open hand. You're pulling away. I think of this like you're pulling that skillfulness out of this other person. Because oftentimes skill is a learned thing. So you're learning it from a person who's already got that skill. So you're kind of like taking that skill for yourself. I'll show it from the side. Like that. So you're actually touching the side of your hand and you're pulling away from it. Does that make sense? Next one is joke. Your fingers are actually both going to be bent. So if you know what an X hand is, that's what it is. You don't need to show that though, just in VR. And you're going to have 2 fingers. This one is stationary. So for me, because I'm right-handed, this is going to be my non-dominant hand. So my left hand is here, my right hand going on top, and moving back and forth, up and down, like that. I see a lot of people get this confused with right, as in correct. This is right or correct. You're going down. It's different. But joke, you're going like this. And again, if you do have index, or if you're doing this sign in real life, your fingers are going to be slightly bent. Okay? Then mistake. If you have a Y hand, you're going to be using a Y. If not, just use a thumb. You're going to be starting on the side of your cheek like this, and then moving forward. So your hand is now resting on the chin. So you're starting here. Mistake. The reason why is this is how you say wrong. With a Y hand, wrong, here on the chin. So you're showing the movement of something happening that's wrong, which is a mistake. Fun fact, this is also the sign for regret. So it could be the feeling of remorsing a mistake that you made, or the actual mistake being taken place. And it's a sign for oops too. I had somebody ask me that the other day. You could be like, oops, oopsie. So yeah, it's pretty much just showing, oop, didn't mean to do that. That was a mistake. Next one is move. You're going to be using the actual term is like closed O. So basically make an O hand and then squish it. But somebody called it a Mamma Mia hand, and I love that. So imagine like an Italian man being like Mamma Mia. So it's that hand. You're gonna have two of those, picking up something, bringing it over. You're moving. This could be like moving homes, or like, hey, you're in the way, can you move? Or anything of the physical act of moving, or more of a contextual, like moving a house. You are moving, but it's also kind of context of changing location. Oops, sorry. Next is lost or loss. You're going to have two hands that are closed. Imagine, let's say you have a piece of toast in your hands, then you let it go, and it's lost. Where'd my toast go? I don't know. You also see one variation where hands are towards yourself, and then you go like this. Totally right. However, it's easier just to do that. I like it that way. This could also be like hearing loss, like both my ears started losing hearing. That's fine. Could be like I lost my mom, loss of feeling, whatever. This one's a great one to know. So there's two ways you can do it. You could either say not yet. So this is a sign for yet. You're going to use your dominant hand and you're kind of like brushing something in the back. You're like, nope, hasn't happened yet. So, and then not is that thumb coming from underneath your chin. But you could also just say no. You're shaking your head no. And you're saying yeah. Nope, not yet. Kind of like you're saying I don't understand by shaking your head. That could also be like that. Not yet. And if it's just positive, then you could just do that. Yeah, what's up, Shaw?
I also, from what I understand, this is shared with later, but because if I understand, no?
Well, it can be. So
the
way that
face expression, right?
It's a different face expression, but there's also an initialized version of later. It's the same motion, but with L.
Oh,
I like this one better because
that's
the thing
exactly
is,
what I was going to ask.
Here's my example. My first ever interview for being an interpreter, the guy it was interpretation for a wedding. So both the grooms were there and they were like, okay, we're going to test you. Because one of the grooms, he knew sign. So he wasn't talking and he was going to test me. And he goes, my friend, finger spells her name, she's deaf late in life. But he used this, which made me think she's not deaf yet. I was like, I kind of like sat there. I'm like, yet deaf? Like that's weird because I read this as yet. To me, this is yet, but it can mean late. And you're right, it's a facial expression. So you're gonna be using your mouth. You're going,
Yeah.
You're making that
you have your
L
tongue
shape.
kind of out. Also, I've seen.
Yeah, late. Late.
Yeah.
Or you can do a T sound. So this can mean late. However, it can be confusing. Like in that moment, I was like, she's yet deaf? Like she's not deaf yet? Why am I here? But so that's why I like to use this. Like, oh, the time it's late. She became deaf late. She was a late deaf person. Yeah.
And I also see you're nodding when you do it, as opposed to not yet. You're nodding for later. Does that also help distinguish the two?
I would say yes, because it could be like, oh, she's not late. It's fine. Like she's not late. Like this time isn't started yet.
Okay.
It's not time for class yet. Like it's fine. So it's like, is she late? And you're like, no, she's not late. You're kind of saying like, oh no, like relax. It's not here yet. But if she was like, oh yeah, she became deaf later in life. Another thing you'll see is sometimes deaf people, and me as well, they'll just say something like, my friend, she? Yes. Like it's just you're just kind of really emphasizing like, yep, she's my friend. And it's also that your face is saying yes, but you could literally say like the sign for yes.
Yeah.
Just really emphasizing
confirmation. Is that what it's called?
Right. Yeah. Confirmation. Yeah. You're like, yep, okay, that's cool. Correct. Yeah. I asked I forgot who it was. Somebody asked me, how do you know when to nod your head no and to nod your head yes? Because they were watching me and Ray sign, and Ray kept signing no. And she thought that it meant that he was like disagreeing with me, but I was like, oh no no no, like he was just saying no in like the context, because he was saying like someone came up to me and said, oh, you know, he started talking, and I was like, oh no no no, I'm deaf. And even though he nodded no and then said deaf, it doesn't mean he's not deaf. It means he was nodding no to this person. They're like, oh no, I can't hear. So people ask me like, when do I know when to nod my head? When do I know when to say yes or no? Honestly, I can't. Ooh, sorry, lag. Honestly, I can't really tell you. It's something. I'd say the main one is if you're saying, if like I said, like don't understand. You're nodding your head no because you don't understand, or not yet. You're nodding your head no because it's a not. But there are just some things where it's like, you know, if a non-native English speaker was like, hey, I noticed that, you know, you do this mannerism when you're saying certain things. When do you use that mannerism? You're like, I don't know. like it's something that's kind of learned, and you just have to keep doing it and pick it up. Which is why it's great. Like we have things like the Monday socials, where you're just kind of forced to sign, and you'll see that. You'll see deaf people when they are nodding no or they are nodding yes, and you could say, "Oh, okay. So he was nodding no." Like kind of like a contextual like story thing, because he was saying no in the story. Oh, okay, I get it. And it's just something you gotta keep practicing. But yeah, you know, face gestures is super important, and because we don't have that in VR, I'd say body movement and face movement is even more important. It is important in real life too, but because we're in VR, like I tell people, because you can't raise your eyebrows, like lean in, like literally go like this, like, huh? Like you kind of look silly, but like that's how you're gonna express, this is a question, huh? Like, what's your name? Like you're leaning into this person. And so, yeah, little things like that. Sorry, I went on for super long. Okay. Are there any questions? I guess this is a good time for a question break. I'll take you, Valley. Come here. Bum. Hi, Valley. Prepare. So prepare. I'd say it depends. I've seen it both as the sign for ready. So you're like, I'm preparing whatever, I'm getting it ready. I've seen it as plan, because it could be like we're planning it, we're preparing it. And I've also seen it as setup. This is how you say set up. Remember, if you were here in my last lesson, we're talking about classifiers. This is how you say there's a thing there, right? So there's a table, the thing is there. Well, how did it get there? You need to set it up. You have a bowl, you're setting it up. You have a plate, you're setting it up. So I've seen that as like if you're preparing a parade, you're setting up that parade, because you got to blow up the balloons and you got to, you know, scrub the tables. So that would be something where I'd say you're setting it up. But if you're just like preparing for your day, I would say I'm getting ready. You know, I'm putting my clothes on, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm brushing my hair, I'm preparing, I'm getting ready. And also plan would be in another context that I can't think of an example of, but I'm sure you can understand. But yeah, I don't think there's an actual just sign for prepare. I've only seen ready and plan and setup. And setup is a great one to know anyway, or just set. Like War Dragon in his class, he taught reset is again set. Set it again. That's resetting. Yeah. So that's a really good sign to know, because you're going to see that a lot. Let's see. Any other questions? Could be about anything, like I said. Hi, Archetype. What's up? I'll take you after. I'll take both of you. I'm sorry. Wait, could you restart? Hold on. Oh, controllers. Yeah. So if you look it up, the actual sign for controller is like this. It's kind of like game, but it's like this way. I don't really like that. So I would say it's context. So, like Shaw was doing, this is like how you'd say controller, like a video game, because you have that controller and the two joysticks, and you're going along. Or maybe if it's one of those like really old time video games, like the big boxes, you could do that. You know, like those. You remember those really old ones from like 90s? No, I can remember in the 2000s they had those too, right? They had like the Pac-Man. I can remember playing Pac-Man like that. Yeah. So like the Pac-Man games or whatever, or like I was talking about, Switch games. So my Switch is a light, so it can't like take off the controllers. I just have this. So I signed it like this. You have you're holding it and you're kind of shaking it because you move it around a lot. But then my other friend, he has a Switch where you could take the two controllers off and you could go like this and it would go up on your TV. So the sign for Switch for him is you got your two controllers and you're going like this. You're clicking it in. So that's Switch normal, Switch Lite, Pac-Man games, Xbox or PlayStation. So I depend on what you're talking about. For VR, I literally just say hands. I just say hands because they're your hands. So the sign for hand is you're doing this. You're just showing your hand, right? And then if you're having two, hand. One hand, other hand. So that's why I say, I'm like, my hands, they died. One of them stuck. I'm like, oh, my hands, they died. Or I need to charge them. Or I need to change the battery. Like whatever. You could just say your hands. But yeah, the actual sign is something like this, which I'm not a fan of. But you might see that. So I do teach it, even though I'm not a fan of it. But yeah, good question. I think Earth had a question, and also Crystal had a question. So you guys got to rock, paper, scissors it out. You gotta see who wins. Best out of 3. Oh, oh, oh. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right. Do you want to do best out of 3 or just go for that? All right, go ahead. You can keep going. He's gonna try and redeem himself. Ooh. All right, this is the final draw. Ah, it was Crystal. Oh, come on. I saw that. You cheater. He totally cheated. No, he went like this. He went paper. Rock. No. Yeah, come on, Crystal. I'll let you ask a question. Also, my cat's name is Crystal, so it's kind of weird. But anyways, go ahead. Cannot mean both. Mm, not and don't? Are you saying could not mean not and don't? So yeah, that's a great question. So a really big mistake, because there is a sign for don't. This is don't, right? You're doing this. A really big mistake people do is they say like don't like, or I don't understand, or I don't see. So that's not what you're gonna do. We're not gonna do that. That's separate. Whenever you're always, always, always gonna use not, or you're gonna do that negation. So remember I talked about you're shaking your head, or another thing is you're doing it and you're pushing it away. So I'm saying I don't like. I'm saying I like it, I push it away. Or I want it, I push it away. This is how you say don't want or don't like, right? But you can use don't. When are you going to use it? You're going to use it when you're saying you're commanding, you're telling someone to stop. So you're saying don't do that. Don't. You're telling them stop it. Don't do that. That's rude. Or hey, don't worry. Hey, do not worry. You're telling them you don't need to worry. You're commanding them. You're telling them something. That's the only time you're going to use don't. You're not going to use that in any other context. However, there is a sign, and the way that I help my students remember it is it literally means do not. So you wouldn't say I am not doing understanding. I am not like or if you did that, you'd be saying like you do not understand. Like you're telling someone, "Hey, you don't understand." And they're like, "Huh?" Like so you're always going to use either that head shaking or that pushing away or that not. The only time you're not going to say that is when you're commanding. You're saying, "Don't do that. Don't say that. Don't be that way." Does that make sense? Cool. All right. Now it's your turn, cheater. So how do you sign MISF? Misfit. Kind of a word. Okay. I don't even know what that means in English. Like, can you explain that to me? Like, I'm a native English speaker and I'm not really sure what that means. like a rascal or like a rebel. There's a sign for rebel. Yeah, I can teach you that. So I actually learned this because my friend and I were joking about I'm not gonna say what we were joking about. And she called me a rebel. And she was like, "How do you sign that?" I learned so it's you have a fist like this and you quickly go out. Rebel. I kind of think of this as like you're rebelling. You'll see a lot of posters, people are like raising their fists or they're kind of like sticking it to the man or whatever. It's not a super well known sign, but this is how you sign it. Like I said, you're kind of showing that movement of I'm rebelling, I'm a rebel. Yeah, I think I'm assuming rascal or rebel or misfit kind of falls under that. um, yeah, a lot of like weird words like that. They don't have an exact translation. Like somebody asked me the other day, some weird name for something, and like when it comes to that, I would use classifiers, or just like things that describe it. So like a fake person, and they hide behind another person instead of like imposter or like hooligan or something. There's no sign for hooligan. You're just gonna be like, I don't know, like an illegal person, a law breaking person, or a sneaky person. Whatever. You can still get the same point across. That probably more clearer if you were to sign it or fingerspell it. Even if you do fingerspell it, maybe that deaf person has never seen that word before. And they'll be like, "What's hooligan mean?" And then it'd just be much clearer for you to be like, they're crazy and they're silly and they do, I don't know, illegal stuff. I don't know. So, you could kind of show your own interpretation. And also that's going to help because what if this deaf person has a different interpretation? So what if they see hooligan and they think of somebody who's really messy and they eat a lot and they get all their clothes gross because maybe their mom called them that when they were younger. But if you were to say your definition, like when I hear hooligan, I think of someone who's like a edgy teenager who like goes and does a lot of pranks and tricks. So when instead of just fingerspelling hooligan, if I'm using those signs and I'm explaining, that deaf person or whoever I'm talking to is going to understand much more than if I were to fingerspell it or look up the sign for hooligan. Does that make sense? All right. Let's see. Any other questions? I'm gonna get Sacco and then someone. Oh, I thought the camera was a person. I I thought it was like a really short avatar. Okay, I'll take Sacco and I'll take shot. What's that? How do you sign CONT? Counter? Wait. Conter. Conter. I don't know French. Well, I do, but not enough. Okay. C. Co. Controller? Yeah, we just went over that. Oh. He's like, I wasn't there. Okay, so I'd say it depends on the context. So are you talking about like an Xbox or a PlayStation? You're gonna be doing this. Like you have that control in your hand, you're wiggling your fingers. Or if you're talking about in VR, you could just say hands. Or, those really old game controllers like Pac-Man and stuff, you're gonna be doing that. But I'd say the general is you're going like this. You're kind of wiggling your hands, moving your fingers, because this means text. That's different. This is like texting a friend. But if you have your other fingers out, that's kind of like you're holding it. And yes, also I've seen this. I've seen this for controller. I think it's old. Controls. The sign for control is you have two bent fingers and you going like this. I think of it like reins on a sleigh or like a cart, and you're like it's really old, like when stuff was drawn by horses and you'd have to pull the horses back. I think it's based on that because it's like you're controlling something or manipulate. That's this. It's like there's a person and you're forcing yourself on them, or you're controlling them, you're manipulating them. So if you're talking about like the verb of control, I would definitely use that. If you're talking about like settings or like, oh, what are your specs, I would probably fingerspell that, or like talk about like pressing something and looking at it and you're saying, okay, there's this and it's labeled controls, and you'd have to fingerspell that. But you could just say control, because they would see the word control and be like, oh, okay, and then click it. But
No,
yeah, I
mean
would say
I actually mean more like VR controls. Like for
yeah. So
example,
then
all
I
the
would say
controls
hands.
in that certain word, or
Yeah,
like those settings, exactly what you mentioned before.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I
So
meant.
like, yeah, definitely. Then just use that. That was a good question. Oh yeah, and Shah, before I forget, what's your question?
My question was along the lines of not and don't. Um, and my understanding, so please fill me in on anything I might miss, but my understanding was something along the lines of going to being like frequently misused by like newer students. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to eat. Like, that doesn't make sense because it's like going to involves like a destination, not a activity. Whereas like will
Right.
would be more correct. Are there
Correct.
is will the correct thing to use, or is there
Yeah,
something
or just future. You don't have to do a W
do
hand. You
future?
could
Yeah,
just do that open hand. So yeah,
or yeah.
I actually had a student bring this up in the Discord, because they were saying like, is it okay if I'm saying I'm going to school? You can say that if you're saying like, I literally, like, I'm waking up, I am going to school. Like, I have to brush my teeth, I have to brush my hair, I have to get in my car and drive and go to school. But if you're talking about like, I'm going to go, like, I will go to college, I will go to university, you're not going to say that. You're not going to say going to college or going to school, going to work in that sense of like in the future. You're going to use that. You're going to say future. You're going to say in the future, college, or excuse me, school or college or work or whatever. And that does mean going to. But when you're saying going, you're right. Imagine this as only meaning literally like standing up and going. Like, you are going to the museum, you're going to the library or whatever. So like I said, it can be used like you're saying, I'm going to a restaurant to eat. That's fine, because you are getting up. You're standing, you're driving, you're going to that restaurant. That's fine. But if you're just going to say I'm going to eat, that's an English thing. You're going to say I will eat. In the future, pretty soon, I'm going to eat. Not I'm getting up to go. Like, you don't need to say that, Obviously, you probably are getting up to your kitchen, but this is more um, like big movements of going somewhere. Another thing I wanted to say about that, that's actually a really good point. I'm blanking on what it was. But yeah, that's pretty much, you're going to mostly use will or future, um, all that good stuff, because go just isn't something that you'd use. Oh, that's what it was. Sorry. You will see people say like, I need to go, or like, I'm going, and that's fine, because that's another thing. Like, even though you're maybe not actually getting up and moving and going somewhere, you're leaving, you're going, you're leaving, you're exiting VR. So that's fine. I just say, you're right. I see a lot of people misusing it because they see that you can say, I need to go, or I'm going to bed. That's another thing you'll see. It's fine. It's not incorrect, but people see that and they think they use go everywhere. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, I'd say be lenient with go. Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you. Let's see. Any other questions? Could be about anything. I want to make sure I'm not ignoring anyone up there or over here. Hi, Crystal. No, don't be sorry. So you do for instead of what you're doing this? You can't do. I saw your fingers spelled relax, right? Yeah, relaxed hands. So are you talking about finger spelling like M and N? No. Mhm. So I'm just a bit confused what you mean by relaxed hands then. Gestures. Yeah. Gesture. This. Mhm. So are you trying to communicate like I'm relaxing by just kind of putting your hands by your side? Is that what you mean? Relax hands. You're just relaxing them. Oh, yeah. Okay, I think I understand. Hold on. Wow, lag.
Hey!
Oh no, everyone is frozen. Oh no. Hello? Oh, okay, we're back.
So, I was here before, like 2 minutes
So
ago.
I think I know what you're
She
saying.
was
Are you asking like if it's okay to like have
saying
that, and if
something,
people will wonder if it's a sign, or like, because like I relax my hands by doing this.
right?
Like I just put my hands over each other,
Okay.
or like I do that, like whatever.
Okay.
There's an American Sign Language class right now in there, so
Yeah, I'm not
I think
inside,
that's
so yeah. I'm not inside there, but yeah.
but
Oh,
they can
I
hear
get
they
it
can still
now.
hear you
They can't do
in there.
this. They can only do this. Okay.
Then
I'm sorry. Okay,
yeah,
because when you
I'm
did
sorry.
this,
Yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna bother
okay,
you,
okay,
but
I get it now.
you do that.
Because of index. So
After you,
that's something
okay,
that I would ask an index
okay,
user
clean up,
for.
but we
Yeah,
already on the
because I
same
don't have
side.
index.
So
Maybe you could talk to Shaw
after you
about
done,
that.
It
after
just
you
Or
done,
you just
after
kind
you
of like
done over there,
curve or curl
yeah,
your
fine.
hands around a little bit. It's
Get,
not perfect.
okay,
It's ugly.
give me the thumbs up,
But if
like
the
this.
better you calibrate, the better
Come here.
better you can do it.
yeah, I have heard recalibration helps a ton.
Doesn't
And also
Ray
Okay,
use?
I'll go.
Ray also has
See you later,
index.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, just doing this motion,
Go.
drumming your fingers
Go
along
there.
it will kind of train it. But it's not perfect at all. But the best advice I have is to do that. And
I
with my
also heard
communication, it seems to work.
moving your physical hand like as close up to like, so like here's the controller. I heard like moving it as high as you can helps it.
What?
Like I have pretty small hands, so I've been told if you have smaller hands, it's not as good for tracking. So like moving it as far up as you can. I don't know exactly what it does because I don't have index, but I've heard that it
Yeah.
helps. So
Yeah,
I think it
I can try to
depends.
help later. I have a bunch of
Yeah.
advice, but I don't want to bore everyone. Half the class
Yeah.
who doesn't have index.
All right, guys, now we're gonna do an index tutorial. This will be about a 2-hour seminar. I hope that you guys have some snacks. If not, you will be scolded for leaving the class. Yeah, that's why I said probably just like go in. I think so. There's a world that has like a perfect model of Oculus controllers that I used for helping people figure it out. I don't know if they have that for index, but I'm sure if you can find a world with like even just like a picture, like Dummy's World, he has a picture of it, just going in there and being able to like point at it and be like, okay, like put your hand here or like press this. Yeah. Yeah, you can totally just get as much help as you need. Or YouTube. YouTube rocks. What's up, Psycho?
I think Devon's World has like controller models. So
Oh,
in this
really?
big
Oh, you're
yeah.
right. You're right. You're totally right. Yeah, Devin's World is super, super laggy, but he has every single controller like modeled in it, even like the variations of it. So yeah, go in there, just like spend like however long you need and just like walk through it. That's how I learned my Oculus because I was like super confused. But yeah, awesome. Let's see. Any other questions? I'm gonna take like one or two, and then we could probably be done. Hi, James. What's up?
9 uur is het begonnen.
Whoop, you alright? Okay. B. Battery. So I sign. There's multiple ways. So battery is you're gonna have both. You're gonna have like two X fingers. So you have a peace sign and they're bent, and you go like this. Battery. So in real life, your knuckles are gonna be like touching each other basically. And the reason why is this is how you say electronic or electricity. You're gonna have just that one finger doing that as electronic, and charge is you're doing this. You're charging something. So kind of imagine like all those three put together is you have an electronic thing that could be charged. But honestly, if you're talking about like my battery's low, you could just say like low, like in point. You don't always have to say battery. It's kind of an understood thing. But yeah, the sign for battery is just like that. Kind of harder to do without index or real life. But yeah, it's a good question. Sounds like Paul's eating some chips. Let's see. Any other questions before? Okay, you'll be the last question for the day. What's up? Oh, something smells good. Okay, sorry. What's the sign for? Oh, I saw the sign, but I never seen it before. B-G-I-V-E. I don't know what that is. B-G-I-V-E. G-I. Oh, give. Oh, you did like a B at the beginning. I'm like, okay, so it's either. So the more general way is that you have something and you're giving it. So you, or my friend gave me it. You're pulling it towards yourself, or you're giving it to somebody. So you have it. I have this thing. I'm giving it, or somebody has this thing. They're giving it to me. It's different than serve, because serve is like open hands. Serve. Oh my god, I'm blanking on the actual word. This. I can't think of the word in English. Help. Help. Bring! It's bring. Okay, so the sign for bring is you have two open hands and you're bringing it. The sign for give is it's more relaxed or like slightly closed hands.